we need to have compassion and concern. Listen, Jesus is our example.
There are a lot of people who still sort of look down. They don't even want to talk about HIV and AIDS. I guess they want to really assume that that it doesn't exist.
How do we address the stigma that is circling around this issue? We came to terms with the fact that the church was a viable means to do that. Why? Because people in the South, in the Southern Bible Belt, where we have this growing incidence of sexually transmitted infections, which seems like a contradiction, folks go to church.
At this point, we're looking at a disease that's more impacting people who have heterosexual sex, and women, especially African American women, again, are impacted greater. Why is it changing? Part of it is community denial.
I think it's frustrating that people think AIDS is over. They think it's done. Magic Johnson's fine. We hear that all the time. Magic Johnson is fine. But people don't know that we're still going to a lot of funerals. HIV is a disease of all of us, and I think that we have to incorporate all of our resources. And the church is, of course, a strong force in particularly the African American community. What better place to get education about health and about risk reduction? People tend to listen to those messages that come from the pulpit.
Cedar Grove, all of us ought to be concerned about this dreadful disease that's killing our people.
And St. Mary's has always been welcoming anybody that comes in here. They welcome our Hispanic ministry in here, and I'm not surprised that they are so open to the AIDS HIV ministry.
Project FAITH stands for Fostering AIDS Initiatives That Heal.
Project FAITH represents the only investment by South Carolina in prevention outside of the DHEC programs. And we really did not respond as a state until about 5 years ago when we put our first dollars into Project FAITH. We put our first dollars into the ADAP program, the AIDS Drug Assistance Program. As a result, coming to this effort so late, we have really a lot of ground to make up because the virus has such a huge head start.
And so it's an exciting thing to watch churches stepping up, stepping out, and saying, I see this health issue as a problem. We want to create an AIDS care team where we want to integrate HIV into our health ministries. We want to be a local solution to a local problem.
I think the business of being tested is very important for clergy. And I think that once we demonstrate our willingness to be tested, then there's a way in which it removes some of the fear and allows people to be more open. Because after all, as we like to say, everybody has a status. The issue is whether it's positive or negative.
And I hope that maybe if enough people can come and say, I'll be tested, that the fear will go away, the stigma will go away.
How does it make you feel whenever you're able to deliver news that these people are negative?
That's always the thrill. When you have an opportunity to give somebody negative results, and not only that, some information that they can carry on to pass on to someone else or to keep them safe for the future, it makes you feel that you're doing something that's worthwhile.
I'm from Iglesia Luterana Manantial de Vida, which is Spring of Life Lutheran Church. I serve a congregation of immigrant Latinos.
The church could in fact be the solution to, part of the solution to this HIV epidemic because they have the power to change attitudes. And so in Project FAITH, we're looking for the Marines, if you will. The Marines are those that understand that this is a problem and they're tired of the burials and the lies. And they've said, we need to do something. They're in communities where they see it all around them and said, I have to get past whatever attitudes and beliefs and stigmas I may have as a congregation, as a church community, and say, what is it that we need to be doing to be better supporters of the word that we profess for the people in our congregation as well as the people that surround our church community. There's a big debate that must occur as to, is abstinence only the only solution, or should we begin to have a more balanced perspective, which talks about abstinence clearly as the safest behavior, but also preparing young people for adulthood so that when they go to college, when they leave their parental authority, that they have the skills and they have the conversation to negotiate their health.
Are you getting tested? I'm getting tested. Oh, yes, I am. America, can you see me? I'm getting tested. I'm Nico.
It's getting harder by the minute that I was telling. If you got color in your skin and you're gonna be a felon. If you got hunger in your heart for something different, then let a brother know so we can create something significant. It's time to get together, we ain't got nothing to lose. Y'all hear me? It's time to get together.
So how'd you feel whenever you first said you were negative?
I felt relief and and just kind of like a little weight was lifted off my back. So it felt good.
Some of the things that I'm frustrated about are that people don't understand the importance of HIV testing. There's some misconception that, oh, if I'm sick, I'll know it. Or I just went to the doctor, last month and he didn't say anything, so I must be fine. So I think it's especially frustrating for me that people don't make it a priority to get tested. To make sure that they know their status and the status of their partners. I think that the discussion about HIV status and HIV testing does not take place enough in relationships. HIV affects all of us.
It definitely doesn't hurt. I've been tested before, and it's just a finger prick, like 2-second finger prick and then 10-minute wait to get tested.
I'm here to get tested for HIV. I am sexually active. I've had a past that was a little crazy. I regret some things, and I'm only 21 years old. It's best now to know than know much later in my life. So I want to go ahead and get tested.
I have been sexually active in the past, and I would like to know now more than any other time in my life whether I have it or not. I'll be able to tell partners in the future and take care of it if I have it now. Hopefully I don't.
Lord, we come to you right now asking that you help them to find a cure for this disease, HIV.
Yeah. How many of you today, I'm gonna ask you, how many of you today would be willing to follow your pastor and be tested Wednesday night? I've been tested, but I want to do it. All right, be here Wednesday night. Let's get tested. Let's get tested. You see all those hands went up? Now, if you are sexually active, you ought to want to know. And somebody said, the preacher talking about sex. Yeah, that's how we got here.
And there are those who don't really like for me as a pastor to say anything about HIV/AIDS from the pulpit. Of course, I believe that if I'm going to be a follower of Jesus, and I am, I got to deal with the whole person. Jesus dealt with social issues.
If you have been affected by HIV/AIDS in your family or friend, if you've been affected some kind of way,
African Americans overall are disproportionately impacted by the disease. African American women are 20 times more likely to contract the disease than white women. Latinos are not far behind. Generally, especially in a state like this, where there's new immigration of Latinos exceeding many other states in this country, the numbers of HIV are steady rising.
My whole name or just the name I go by? Most people call me Fred, for short. But the name is Alfredo Pedro del Corazón de Jesús Aglieti Mora López Mafuti Caglieri Alfaro. You can call me Fred for short. I am the missioner for the Upper South Carolina Hispanic Ministry, Episcopal Church. We have the mission here at St. Mary's, so we call it Santa Maria. St. Mary's has a huge heart, and St. Mary's has always been welcoming anybody that comes in here. They welcome our Hispanic ministry in here, and I'm not surprised that they are so open to the AIDS HIV ministry.
We get together.
I have had many parishioners that come to me, and if they're looking for a doctor, and they will ask me, is that safe? Can I go there? Can I, are they going to ask me questions, They're afraid of that.
Para saber exactamente cómo uno se siente de salud y para tomar una alimentación y lo que es un mejor cuidado con los demás y con uno mismo.
Okay. He just said that he needed to know his status so he'd be able to know his health condition and everything else, so he won't be able to pass it on. They are scared, period. Because of the stigma. If they find out that they are, then how people are going to react to them, where they're going to seek help because they have no insurance. And this is what we're trying to tell them. There's resources up here. You don't have to have insurance. There's all kinds of help out here to help you with it. 16 years ago, there was a woman that made the front page news right here. Ex-lover prosecute men for intentionally exposing her to the virus. This woman was in a committed relationship, and she met and she caught this man, and he deliberately gave her the virus. I am that woman. And I stand before you, because this is the first time that I actually come forward in 16 years, because I made a promise to my children that I would not allow them go into the stigma. They were in school. I had a daughter graduating from C.A. Johnson, and I had a 5-year-old. And they begged me. They said, Mama, please, don't put us through this. You look at me, you will never think that I have the virus. I met a man I fell in love with, and I trusted him. Okay, we can't trust men these days, or women. You can't trust anybody with your life. La gente que no saben hablar español le voy a explicar que SIDA está aquí. Ustedes se creen que la SIDA no está aquí, pero aquí están saliendo más y más gente latina con la enfermedad. La raza latina está creciendo mucho con la HIV. Yo lo veo todos los días en la clínica y ellos no saben cómo. Vienen de los países de ellos ya infectados, vienen con hijos infectados aquí. Cada vez que tú te acuestas con una persona, puede ser el marido tuyo, antes de ti, podía tener muchas mujeres. Tú te estás acostando con todas las mujeres que él secuestró. Y viceversa, las mujeres también. I like to leave and reach people that you need to take care of yourself. Know your status. Take care of yourself. And don't go out here and trust anybody with your lives, because you only have one life, and you're the only one that's responsible for that one.
We've all experienced, I think all of us who work in this arena have experienced stigma in terms of how people respond to this disease. But what we have seen progressively over time is that there has been a greater degree of openness, and that there has been a greater degree of willingness to at least, and we use the word conversation a lot, to begin the conversation. I'm one of those folks that has a deep-seated belief in the fact that in the midst of conversation, the creative energies flow and the possibilities for transformative change can occur. So if you get the conversation going, then there's a way in which, as I said, myths are dispelled, and really the misunderstandings that have too often been driven by a lack of solid, concrete information.
In the environment where culturally you can't talk about sex, you can't talk about condoms and protection, and also a kind of level of denial. Not my disease, not my problem. I don't have to be worried. So we are trying to put out messages that help African Americans look at issues of self-esteem, issues of resilience in themselves, issues of being able to negotiate with partners around condom use, around sex, and all of the other social economic things that come into play that support the disease are issues for African American women specifically.
Most people, when they see this, someone has HIV, their first instinct is like, oh God, poor them. Well, that doesn't help empower people. Those who are empowered, who disclose to people, have better health outcomes. But what happens is the community around them has to make that conducive. If they have a support system, then it's easy for them. I have a support system. My family supports me. They don't live here, but wherever I go, they will follow. Whatever I need, they'll be there. And then I have a good work environment, so the people there support me in my efforts too.
This ribbon represents what we believe in, and that's HIV/AIDS epidemic. I like to think of it, because it's red, it gets into your bloodstream. and it affects every part of your body. It tears down stigma. When people see this red ribbon and say, oh, what is that? Or some of them may already know. And this ribbon represents to me a whole lot more, because it not only represents, the HIV/AIDS virus, but it also represents the blood of Jesus. So I find that a lot of times that people do come to the church because they know that there is an HIV ministry there. So, with people being transparent now, you're finding that people are having more support and people are much more open to talk about their diagnosis. My name is Pamela Sykes. I'm with Life Center Cathedral. I've been a deacon and ministering for quite some time now. My husband died of AIDS in 1992, and I contracted the virus in 1992 as well. And in 1999, I was diagnosed with AIDS. I know for myself, I began to question my relationship. God, why is this happening to me? Because I think that's one of the things that most people say. And sometimes it is about our life choices, making bad choices, maybe with the individual that we've been with, or, I contracted it from my husband. So, everybody has different, I would say, choices, but the thing about it is I begin to say, okay, I've got to take responsibility for my own actions. And once I took responsibilities for my own actions, that's when I was able to confront God and say, listen, I've made some mistakes with my life. Now I need you to heal me.
In the 27 years that I've been working with HIV and AIDS, that question of what is God, where is God in this? Where is God in this in my life has been a critical question, from people who have been caregivers and family members, all the way to people who have found out that they themselves have been infected. It's a terrible, terrible crisis of faith that people go through. And it doesn't help that sometimes the faith communities are the first ones to condemn and the first ones to, sort of say, you have done this to yourself, that God has nothing to do with this. I've sat at the bedside with people the last moments of their life. I've also sat with young people who had the whole life ahead of them, but would now have to deal with HIV and AIDS as part of their life. And from my perspective, God is in HIV. God is in the community and in the way that we treat each other with HIV. And so it's important for us to not separate those two worlds. There's not the world of sex and the world of church and the world of government. We live in a world that has all of these things interconnected to each other and intermingled.
Y'all hear me? It's time to get together.
We've got each other today, so hold hands and sing as we tumble this way. Together we're stronger, and I know we're okay, and you know we belong here. Together as one.
The other thing that we're seeing, things that have changed, is the growing rates among older adults. 45 years of age and up. We have typically thought it was just young people, but it's not. It's older women in particular, women who are now divorced or widowed, who are back dating again.
This is 2011, and people are still people who are now maybe widowed or newly divorced and have been out of the dating scene for a long time and trying to bring those old values into 2011, and they don't mix. The old stuff doesn't kind of work in the new life. So there's a new game plan that has to be set. And a lot of people back who are like my age or my mother's age, their main concern was getting pregnant. So now it's like, I'm not gonna get pregnant, so I don't have to worry about anything.
Most of us, as you know, never had to talk about these kinds of things. We have divorcees, people that have transitioned in their relationships. They are totally unprepared to have the conversation. They're uncomfortable talking about sexuality and their lives, but yet they're vibrant, and they're going to live longer prayerfully, and they're going to have a life. And so we cannot ignore that as the new 50, the new 60-year-old male and female, that they're going to have sexual lives and intimate lives, and they need to know what's up.
And I would challenge those of us who are in my age group, and those of you who know me know my age group, would check themselves and make sure that their children are checked as well.
In this age of Viagra, in this age of sort of increased sexuality into old age, we have people who are actually infected within the elderly community. And for people to believe that they somehow are immune to the disease or to the infection because they're over 50 or over 70. If they're sexually active, they are in danger of being infected with HIV and should protect themselves.
When I worked at the health department, the oldest man I talked to was 72, and he was in a nursing home, HIV infected, just finding out at 72. So I see that population, and see the young folks think grandma not having sex and papa not having sex, and papa and grandma trying to keep the young folks from having sex, and they're all having sex and they're all becoming infected, and nobody's listening, nobody's talking about it. So that's my purpose, is to get that word out. We need to talk about it.
Now we can no longer act like HIV and AIDS is no longer part of our aging scenario.
Given the stigma of the past, it's changing somewhat now. People are a little bit more aware of the multiple causations, and they do not view it as they once said, this is a gay disease, or this is from bad sex, or this is from immorality. Now we spend the time not so much pointing the finger at the problem, but trying to figure out, do we have the capacity and the commitment to do something about the problem?
Well, my one prayer and desire is that the leaders of our state would open their eyes and understand that this is something that we must face, we've got to deal with. It is not a black issue, it is not a white issue, it is a human issue.
I think it's important, again, that the faith community engage in this process, particularly from an African American perspective. But let me make it clear that this is not an African American disease. This is a disease that has gone spread throughout our communities. And if we are not careful, it's going to be in all of our neighborhoods.
It's going to take commitment from the community. It's going to take all of us working really, really hard with a focus on ending the epidemic while maintaining the dignity of people with HIV.
It's about whosoever. And the more you can develop the capacity to see every human being as the same in terms of creation, then you have the greater ability to get beyond the stumbling blocks and the barriers that sometimes cause us not to be aggressive and forthright in our response to their problems.
I think it's time for people like me to continue to work, but kind of step back a minute. Our job should be one of empowering, because they're mothers and fathers and grandmamas, and they're teachers, and they're pastors, and they're deacons, and they're all these people that are sitting in the community, but because of the larger worldview of who we think they are, we reject the conversation.
I would like to see more pastors and more reverends and bishops more involved in this epidemic.
The church cannot afford to play ostrich on this, where we put our heads in the sand and act as if it is not real. It is real, and the only way to deal with it is you've got to face it.
Never could have made it without you. I would have lost it all. But now I see how you were there for me, and I can say I'm stronger, I'm wiser, I'm better. Never would have